First thing I would do for an athlete to get to use the HydroWorx, which is usually the first thing I have them do when they come into the training room, to have them come in and work on the range of motion. But first you got to get them warmed up, so I have them walking a little bit just to get warmed up, get comfortable, and then just going through a comfortable range of motion. That is stressed very much to make sure that everything is pain-free range of motion. And once they're in there for 10 to 15 minutes, usually the range of motion increases quite a bit, and that's the idea behind it. So we're doing flexion extension, and here's flexion extension with a little bit of external rotation of the hip. There again, I'm focusing more so on the groin type of injuries, very hockey specific, making sure the adductors and abductors extensions are working together. But right now, just trying to keep a normal plane of movement. Move to the side here, working on the adduction, abduction, but basically just focusing on the injured leg. There again, normally I try to use both legs, so you're doing stabilization with the injured leg as well. So on a lateral slide, I think it'll show on the video that I have both legs on here, the injured or the involved and the uninvolved leg off the treadmill, and the other one sliding, bringing it back, because you're using both the right and left adductors right here, one for stabilization, one going through the range of motion. And there again, it really depends on how sore it is. If you just let the treadmill pull it out to the point of stretching it, and then do you bring it back hard, do you bring it back real hard, or you just let it kind of float back? It depends on how sore you are. The treadmill just takes it out, and that's just kind of working on the range of motion right now. As the tape goes on, I speed up the treadmill a little bit more and more, so it gets a little bit more intense, I guess you would say. There again, it's just more ballistic. It's more of a hopping, shuffle, that type of thing. Adductors. Working on the crossover, same thing, just adding a little bit more difficulty to it, a little bit more range of motion possibly, a little bit more sport specific. There again, this is more so for groin injuries, but all of these can be done on MCL injuries, high ankle sprains. Just crossing over, doing a karaoke, just crossing over. There again, quick feet, trying to get the muscle to fire faster rather than slow, working on the full range of motion. You're working on quicker firing of the muscle, make that work harder. Work both directions. Facing forward, the extension with opening up your hip, and again, this might be a little bit more specific to hockey. Working on the range of motion, you're doing extension and then externally rotating the hip. Very similar to the hockey stride, but there again, that can be transferred over to any type of sport. As far as if you're doing a 45-degree cut, that's kind of what you're doing to your hips. Get down in the athletic stance, try to keep the abs tight, external rotating and extension. And there again, depending on how sore they are, they should all be in a comfortable range of motion and bring it back against the resistance of the water. I don't have any of the jets going right now, but. And this is closer to a hockey stride as far as trying to get a little bit more abduction, trying to get the legs a little bit wider apart, a little bit more hockey specific. Probably should be crouched a little bit lower, but I suppose with the water height, kind of depending on how tall you are, if you can crouch down or not. Trying to mimic a little bit skating backwards and then opening up the hips. And obviously that's a major part of hockey, is being able to open up your hips like that. Just trying to mimic that movement. But there again, that being a defensive back in football, the same thing. You're backpedaling and you open up the hips to start running forward, so it transfers over to other sports as well. Going quite slow here, but there again, it all depends on how far along they are in their rehab. If they're able to handle backpedaling at 5 miles an hour and opening up of the hip, you just progress the rehab depending on how the athlete is doing pain-free range of motion. Like I mentioned, I don't have the jets on. It's the water a little bit for the picture, but you could add that. And now we're going to go up a little bit faster for the skating stride. It's going 3 miles an hour now. Just allow the treadmill to take the foot back, and then it's more important once you get back to pull it back quicker. Because there again, that's when the majority of the injuries happen, is right when you hit full extension and just as you start bringing it back. Obviously, nothing can duplicate on the ice, but I think this is fairly close anyway. And there again, just increase the intensity or the speed of the activity. And the pool I have has the video to where they have instant feedback to where if I want them to go through a specific range of motion, if they're not toeing off far enough or good enough with a high ankle sprain, or if they're not externally rotating their hip as much as I want, I can see right away that they're not doing it. They can look at the TV in front of them and understand what I want. So now it's going 5 miles an hour there again, just increasing the speed, increasing the intensity, working the muscle harder. More of a reaction type rather than slowly going through the range of motion. And at this point in the rehab, they're already on the ice doing some things on their own. Again, just focusing on the adduction, abduction. And there again, with the groin, but you're dealing with both groins, the stabilization one, the left leg in this case, and then the right one pulling it out. You're using both. Wide stance, bring the foot all the way in, and go to that 45-degree angle. Basically, externally rotate as you're going back. The majority of the injuries that we get with the groin or the hip flexors when the leg is all the way externally rotated and abducted, and then just as they start bringing it back. So that's the one benefit to the treadmill, is it allows that full range and then some resistance to come back through the water and through the jets. And then the hose. The athlete that had the groin pull did use massage hose from time to time, but it was more so of a manual massage that I did to him daily. Played the following Saturday, and this was game night here. This is what it looked like game night, and played with no problem at all. So he's been back. He's been back ever since, and he hasn't missed a game because of it. He doesn't use a brace anymore. He hasn't had any problems since. So maybe we should have used HydroWorx and the Kaiser and a few other things right away when he did it last year. So. Most of the time it's hip flexor or groin, lower ab, MCLs, high ankles, and we use a lot just for bruises on the foot. When the puck hits the skate, there's a lot of bruises, and they're not walking normal for the first few days. So they're again just introducing the treadmill to them, walking normal, toeing off normal, and then introducing different twists and everything with the legs, with the hips, just to get either the foot, the ankle, the knee, or the hip back to normal range of motion. I think is probably the key component of what the treadmill can